All right, let's talk about Christopher Morales Williams. Represents Canada, competes for the University of Georgia, and just this past weekend at the SEC Indoor Championships, he broke the world record in the 400-meter dash indoors, running 44.49 seconds. That broke the previous record set by Michael Norman all the way back in 2018, which had broken the previous record set by Karan Clement all the way back in 2005. Now, of course, both of those are going to be super relevant as we're talking about Morales Williams' world record not getting ratified by World Athletics, despite it being the fastest time in history. Well, why did this all happen? First off, I just want to give a huge shout outs to Morales Williams for the huge improvement that he's made. Last year, he only had a best indoors of 47 seconds in the 400. The year prior to that, he only had a best of 48 seconds indoors. So for him to make this progress in just a couple years bodes very well for not only NCAA indoors coming up in just in a week or so, but also for outdoor season where he might be a very, very strong force. So we're going to see how that kind of plays out. But why is it that his world record didn't get ratified? So first off, two things need to be in place. You have to have doping control on that same day, so an athlete needs to get tested. And additionally, you have to have false start blocks in place for athletes' records to be ratified, specifically for World Athletics. We did find out that Christopher Morales Williams, he did take a test on the same day. He did, pass the test, so he's all cleared on that aspect. If you remember back in 2018, there was world records at the NCAA Indoor Championships between Michael Norman's world record, Sidney McLaughlin-Roney setting a world junior record, right? All those records didn't get ratified because there was no doping control conducted on site at the NCAA Indoor Championships. So those records didn't count. Morales Williams, he's cleared of that. The other point is the false start blocks. At the SEC Championships indoors here, the false start blocks were not used. We did find out that they actually were in the building and they could have been used, but coaches actually voted against using them at the meet. Now, why would this actually happen? And I don't even know who the coaches were, right? Was this like a 50-50 majority vote? Was this like all the coaches voted? Or was this like just a couple of the top coaches? I don't actually know, and we'll probably never figure out. But I do think that there is an understanding as to why they might not have wanted to use the blocks. Think about it. Since about 2010, when the false start rule, the one and done, was put into place, we've noticed that they've introduced these blocks and the sensors, which are super, super sensitive, right? Sometimes athletes don't even false start. They just kind of move their feet and then they eventually get called for a false start. And then you have these protests and whatever are happening. So they're super, super sensitive. And I think that a lot of these coaches didn't want to see their athletes get disqualified just because of some slight mistake by the blocks or some slight sensor mishap or something like that. That might be why they didn't want to use the blocks. Think about it. If an athlete gets DQ'd, not only do they lose the potential to win a conference title, they also lose the potential to possibly qualify for NCAAs. They also lose the potential to get more funding from their schools. A lot of these schools actually fund their track and field programs or some of their sports programs based on conference titles, right? Based on NCAA titles, based on how well their school does in these competitions that their athletes are going to. So if a bunch of athletes get disqualified, how are they going to be able to justify all these things that are necessary as they move forward throughout the season and throughout the year? So that's just my opinion as to why I think the coaches might have voted against that. And additionally, I know I've heard some people saying like, when did this come in place? Is this a new rule? This has been a rule for a while. And if I have it, I'll put it up on the screen here on when the rule was actually put in place. But it's been a rule for a couple years now. 2010, when they changed the false start rule, that might have been when it actually occurred. Now, let me start off by saying that I actually think World Athletics is perfectly fine and perfectly correct to enforce these rules that are in place. I think these rules are perfectly fine. This is my first kind of opinion. Think about it. First off, on the doping control, it makes sense. You want to make sure an athlete, especially an athlete who may not be super, super prominent like Christopher Morales Williams is, someone who's not in the testing pool for like USATF or, Canada or World Athletics, whatever it may be. You want to make sure that they get tested, right? Just to make sure that everything is good and, we don't have to DQ later, et cetera, et cetera. That makes sense. Additionally, something like starting blocks is no different than making sure that the track is the right distance or all these other technical aspects are in place to make sure that the meet is running correctly. Yes, the sensors are very, very sensitive, as we've seen in different examples. 2022 Eugene World Championships as one clear example. And yes, the sensors are not always going to be perfect and they have this crazy threshold, but there is some credence to understanding why sensors have to be utilized for the competitions in any event from 400, 200, 160, et cetera, et cetera. etc. So I do understand the rules. We want to make sure that, you know, track rules and technical aspects are all in place. Since I've been watching the sport, people go and compete down in Clermont and they run super fast times, and I hear people saying, oh, the track must be short, or oh, it must be downhill, or all these kind of things, right? That just talks to the point of why all these specific rules and regulations need to be in place at these different track meets to assure that the competition is being fair across the board, whether it's at SECs, whether it's at World Indoors, whether it's at NCAAs, whether it's at, you know, Millrose games, etc., etc. So I do understand why the rules are necessary, but don't let that take away from some of the ridiculous rules that World Athletics has, right? Talking about 2018 NCAA Indoors, 4 people must be from the same country to be able to set a world record, right? Rai Benjamin competed for Antigua and not the United States. It's like the world record is a world record. 4 people came together and broke the world record. I don't care what country they are. Those are kind of like dumb rules versus false start blocks or doping control, right? All those kind of things. But on the flip side, I do think that World Athletics is wrong in the sense that Kron Clement from 2005 is not the world record holder. I don't care like what the specific technicalities are. And yes, me and you, we all understand that World Athletics has rules. We all understand as to why, you know, all these technicalities are in place and why this can't be ratified as a world record. But no one is out here calling Kron Clement the world record holder. Michael Norman in 2018, despite his record not being ratified, he was the world record holder. Christopher Morales Williams in 2024, despite his world record not being ratified, he is the world record holder. We understand the technicalities, but I'm not going to go into a conversation. Someone says, hey, who's the world record holder in the 400? Well, you know, Kron Clement back in the day. It's like, no. Even more so, I'm going to put this up on the screen right now, but look at the World Athletics list, their top list of all-time indoor 400s. Who's at the top? Christopher Morales Williams. At the end of the day, World Athletics recognizes the mark and they recognize that it's the fastest of all time. The fact that they don't recognize it as a world record, it doesn't matter to me. It really doesn't matter to me. I'm gonna consider it a world record. I think most, if not all of us, are also gonna consider it a world record, and it is what it is. Think of just these past couple weeks. How many of you were sitting here talking about Letsili Tobogo is actually only the world best holder in the 300-meter dash? Yes, World Athletics put up a graphic saying that he's the world best, but at the end of the day, it's a world record. We've all been calling it a world record. Jakob Ingebrigtsen, last year, he broke the 2-mile world record in Paris. And, you know, people are like, oh, it's a world best. It's not an official event. Listen, it's a world record. It's the fastest person who's ever run. And most of y'all probably don't look at the World Athletics world record list. Y'all probably go to the top list. But if you do, shout out to you. But just wanted to edit this in, and I wanted to highlight that I understand there's been a discussion around prize money and how Christopher Morales Williams actually would lose out on the prize money he would usually receive if he was to break a world record, just like any other athlete. Now, that is one thing that is taken away from him. From my understanding, the NCAA does allow for athletes to accept prize money as of their current rules. I have seen some different things that conflict with it, at least from USATF, that says it's questionable if athletes who are in the NCAA can receive prize money. But in this case, I did want to acknowledge that Christopher Morales Williams does lose out on potential prize money if a world record is not ratified. I'm not even sure if a world best will get you prize money, but just wanted to make sure I can highlight that. At the end of the day, just kind of in summary, World Athletics, I think they had their rules correct in terms of understanding, yes, we need to have doping control. Yes, we need to have false start blocks. We need to make sure that these things are in place to be able to confirm that something is a correct time, is a world record, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that World Athletics is wrong in the sense of like, this is not a world record. It is a world record that it's the fastest time in the history of the event. So let me know what you think about Christopher Morales' world record. Let me know what you think about the rules that World Athletics has in place. Do you think that the rules are right, but are you still going to call it a world record? Or do you think that the rules are completely wrong and there is no reason to have false start blocks or to have doping, all those different things? Let me know what you think. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Back again next time. Thanks for watching, y'all.